Well, Gabby, what a thrill to have you on Dose of Leadership. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome to my closet.
Yeah, I think it looks great. I know you were asking if we're going to do video, and then I was impressed by how you zoomed in and man, like a pro, zoomed it in and got the right. I think it looks great. You got the purse in the background and everything else.
I know, because in all this quarantine, we thought about being, creative, thinking outside the box and everything. And so I changed this. I'm not going to my office. I'm not going to my studio. I'm really quarantining hardcore. So I know that this is the room in my house that has the best acoustic. And
Yeah,
I even put some lights in the back. And also at the same time, I'm not going to be interrupted. So
that's
we
no, that's
want
great.
a we
Yeah.
want a conversation. So welcome to my closet.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I moved down here in the basement. I'm still dealing with the acoustics. I put up these big sound panels on here, and you can't see it, but here I got this big fluffy blanket right here that's reflecting, absorbing the sound on my wall, and I still get this echoey. So I still got some work to do in here. But yeah, so I don't have a closet like you do to go into. Well, I got to tell you, I really enjoyed your book, The Virtuous Circle. And I love how you even opened up the book, how it's for dreamers, to rebels at heart who see beyond the circumstances surrounding them. I love the open. I knew when I read that in the preface that this was going to be a great book. And we think along the same things. I love the fact that you're really passionate about getting people to understand that, you have something inside. We all have something inside of us. And it's just our job is just to unleash it, right? It's already there, right? I mean, that's how I see it.
That's how I see it too. But it took me a long time, and it took me seeing it in other people to recognize that I also had it in me. Because I, as a journalist, was fortunate enough to spend 10, 15 years interviewing extraordinary people. And so I asked myself, what do they all have in common? So many of them, they were underdogs. They were not the most likely to succeed. Just like me, I'm not the most likely to succeed many times. And by talking to them, it transformed me. And I realized that these people, what they had is what I mentioned. They were able to give themselves permission to see beyond their current circumstances, because sometimes our current circumstances, they overwhelm us. Or sometimes we believe other people's low expectations about us or people like us. And if we believe them, they become self-fulfilling prophecies. And that's what we don't want to happen.
Yeah, that you said a lot of great things there, and it's so true. The blessing, I think, of again, of you having the opportunity and the ability to interview so many great people as a journalist, it does change you. And we were talking a little bit before the recording. I mean, my life has been totally transformed because I've had 450 plus conversations. It's even hard to describe what that does to you. So that's a blessing that you saw that. And it's great. It's a great question to ask. What do all these people have? And it's interesting that you extracted that from them, that they refuse to accept whatever all the external noise that's coming into them, right? And that's the head trash that all of us agree. That's one of the things I've learned from doing this show, is that everybody has this head trash, these limiting beliefs, right?
Mm-hmm. I always say you have to believe in your vision even before you have the results to validate it. Because everybody can believe in their vision once they won the lottery, once they know they have the winning ticket. But, but this is not the lottery, You have to believe in that vision even before you have the results to validate it. And what I saw in all these people is what I call the virtuous circle, which is archetypes that live inside all of us. It's 7 archetypes that constitute the virtuous circle. And I'm going to briefly explain them. Each one of them is a different chapter in the book. And I'm going to be really brief right now. The first one is what I call the dreamer. Everybody who has succeeded that I interviewed, they have an inner dreamer. The inner dreamer is the one that allows you to visualize that dream. Mm-hmm. The second archetype is the architect. The architect is the one that plans. Richard, you and me, we plan this conversation. We plan our meals. We plan our budgets. We already have that inner architect inside of us. The third one, because you're not going to achieve great things just from visualizing and planning. The third one is the maker. You have to execute. And so many people get stuck in this one. They dream, they plan, but they never execute.
Mm-hmm.
So once you execute, what happens? You're going to have errors and you're going to have things that you're going to do right. And so if you're smart, you're going to learn and you're going to become the next one, which is the apprentice. Everybody who I've seen succeed in life, they perfect their craft. Nobody gets far by doing what they do just at a so-so level. They perfect their craft. And I joke because I say, what happens when you become really good at what you do? And people say, what happens? Well, sometimes even when you're really good at what you do, nobody pays attention.
Right.
That's why you need the next one, which is the warrior, the one that teaches you perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And when the perseverance of the warrior and the knowledge you have from the apprentice meet an opportunity, because sooner or later in life, Richard, we come across opportunities. That's the moment of the achievement. And that's when I say you become the champion. And I ask every champion that I come across, champion, I beg you, what are you using your achievements for in this life? What are you using your achievements for? If you're using your achievements for something bigger than yourself, if you're using your achievements to make this world a better place, you are going to become the seventh and last archetype, which is the leader, the one that inspires. And this is called the Virtuous Circle. The book is called the Virtuous Circle because with your next idea, with your next project, with the next thing you have in mind, where do you go? Back to the beginning, to being a dreamer, because the only thing that is constant, Richard, in this life is change.
Yeah. I love the visual and how you kind of the Cliff Notes version of what you just explained, that because I think it was the first time that I've seen that what goes through my head, right? Because I have this gnawing, and people I have this gnawing of wanting to create, to do, right? So certainly the dreamer side of me is strong, right? And even the architect thing, I would say I've been better at that. I've gotten better at that, right? In creating this podcast, I had a dream, I had a plan, I'm executing it, right? I would even say now, 8 years into doing this show, I'm probably entering the apprentice to warrior piece of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can see how, okay, what am I going to do with this, right? And then champion, then become the leader. It's like, even when I talk about leadership, the whole goal of leadership is to be a transformational leader, meaning leaders training other leaders, right? Otherwise, I think you're shaming the universe and what the obligation is. And to your point, the obligation I think that we have is to make the place better than we found it. And if that's our obligation, then if we use this step-by-step visualization of this virtuous circle, I think, I don't know, it gave me a lot of alignment and clarity about what I'm trying to do, even personally. I don't know. I mean, that's just my own personal experience. When I read this, I was like, yeah, I can see where I'm at. And I can see, and I think back to all the times in my history where I've had a dream or in a plan and I got stuck in the execution, then I went to something else, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is what most of us do, probably. Yeah.
Yes, but I love it because it's a tool for self-examination and self-discovery.
Yeah.
For example, for me, I know that when things get tough, I tend to disconnect from my inner dreamer. I tend to not see the world with the eyes of possibilities, but I catch myself, because I am self-aware that this is a problem area for me. I know, on the other hand, that the warrior in me is very strong. I am a person who is going to persevere. I don't abandon my dreams prematurely. So I know that's a good one. And I know that I am probably a person who, if I have this burning desire and I plan, I am not going to get stuck in the maker. I probably are going to execute, Then, as you say, the apprentice, I think the apprentice is so valuable in a changing world, because the people who said, okay, I've learned everything, I know it all, there's nothing else for me to know. I know it, I've done it, I've been in this business for 40 years, or I've been in this business for such amount of time. Really, we have to all humble and know that in a
Mm.
changing world, nobody knows it all. And that archetype of the apprentice of perfecting your craft is one that we have to cherish in our heart always.
Yeah, to me, when I look at I love that part of the wheel, the apprentice and the warrior wheel and this and that, because to me, that's where the 10,000 hours comes in, right? The perseverance, like when you're doing it and you're starting to get burned out. I mean, even like doing these interviews at some point, I mean, there's been multiple times, even during this 8 years, I'm like, another conversation. I know what this person's going to say. And I didn't do my homework. I didn't study the individual. You know, I just cashed it in, right? Because I thought, oh, this is going to be an easy conversation, right? Shame on me for not humbling myself and going to each conversation thinking I have something to learn here. I can get better. I can become a better conversationalist. I can become a better interviewer, right? That to me is and it's a great self-awareness tool. And the key to all of this is constant self-awareness. Where am I at in this wheel? And like you said, if I know that I'm strong as the warrior, then I can know, and I know that I struggle in the execution and the perfection piece. I just know where I need to work on, right? I just know where I need to dig in, and my goal is to get to the warrior piece. Then I know the rest will be easy, right? That's how I see it.
And I think right now that we're going through such a challenging time, the warrior inside of us is something that we have to nurture so much, because I always feel that the biggest danger when we're going through these uncertain waters is that we might make the mistake of jumping to permanent conclusions based on temporary circumstances.
Agreed.
So what do I mean by that? Jumping to permanent conclusions based on temporary circumstances. When I graduated, I'm from Argentina originally. When I graduated in Argentina, unemployment was 20%. It was a big moment of uncertainty and stability in my country. We had 5 presidents in 10 days. It was crazy, crazy, crazy.
Right.
And for a moment, I spent 2 years unemployed. And for a moment, I thought that I was not going to be able to get a job in the media industry. Because when you knock on so many doors and when you spend so much time unemployed, you make the mistake of assuming that the lack of interest from the world and from employers is a reflection on who you are as a professional or who you are as a person. Like, if they don't pay attention to me, it's because I have nothing of worth to offer. And that is a negative, very negative mindset. And that is not true most of the times. But I was this close to giving up. I remember one day feeling at my lowest, watching television in the afternoon, daytime television, and telling my husband, and started laughing, because I saw a host, a TV host. She was larger than life, and she had a quality that only fantastic TV hosts have. And it is when you are with her, you forget about all your dramas, Richard. So I was depressed, but I was laughing, watching the TV. And I told really carelessly, check out this woman, she's amazing. In my next life, I want to work in media. And my husband, my boyfriend, looked at me, and he knew I was speaking from a place of disbelief, of discouragement. And he asked me a question that changed my life. He said, Gaby, if this makes you so happy, if this makes you laugh, if this is something that makes you feel alive, why are you going to wait for your next life to do it? I was this close, Richard, to abandoning a dream that time proof was within my reach. But the problem was, I was so tempted to jump to permanent conclusions about my future. I would never be able to get a job in media or in television or you name it, based on circumstances that were only temporary. The unemployment rate in Argentina, that could work, that could change. And if it didn't change, I could change location. But I was really close to giving up on a dream that made me so happy.
I love that story. And I guess my question is like, so you're obviously in the dreamer stage and you're trying to advance and take to the next, to become the architect, right? So you're sitting there on the couch and you're seeing that, and like, I know I'm going to be that next, like your boyfriend, who's now your husband, asked that question, is like, well, why are you going to wait till the next life, right? Yeah. So what, if that was the kind of the aha moment, what did you start doing after that? I mean, did you immediately go into the architect phase? If you look back at it now, I mean, were you constantly, because I find myself, even when I'm in that dreamer phase, I'm in that visualization phase, right? And I love the idea of like making sure that the dream is real, right? I mean, because I think sometimes people get in that dream stage, and what if the dream is just completely delusional? You know what I mean? I mean, how do you know that your dream isn't a delusion? Because you could sit there in I could argue that you're sitting there in Argentina with that 20% unemployment rate, going through, 10 presidents in 5 days or whatever it was. There would probably be people that would be close to you, that love you deeply, that would say, look, Gaby, that is a delusional dream.
At the end of the day, a delusional dream is to become a doctor in 1 year. You cannot become a doctor in 1 year.
Yeah.
There are things that are obviously not happening or not happening within the time frame. But there are things that really you don't know before starting. And that if you think they're not going to happen, you might deny yourself the chance of finding out.
I agree.
And maybe your dream was delusional. Maybe it was borderline delusional. And the borderline delusional, I believe, is where pioneers and visionaries live.
Yeah.
Because the fact that it hasn't been done before does not mean that it cannot be done right now. And in pursuing that dream, even if you don't achieve it, let's say I was in Argentina and I didn't have the chance of working on camera, and I didn't have the chance, and things that happened to me did not happen. I believe that in that pursuit of finding out what is possible for you, in that pursuit of finding out what can be done and what cannot be done, you will surprise yourself in having more tools, in having more perseverance, in having more abilities. And that in itself is a treasure that it's worth figuring out.
I agree with that. It is a fantastic answer. I love that, right? I mean, it'd be great if it was borderline delusional. And even if you didn't achieve it, I mean, how many people, I'm sure you've heard this, how many people have you talked to where you've asked them, did you ever think you'd be doing this? And almost to the T, they would say, man, I had no idea I would be doing this, right? They started that pursuit doing X, and they ended up in Y and Z, and they never thought they would be in Y and Z, but they're so happy they're in Y and Z because to your point, they learned more about themselves. They pushed themselves out of a comfort zone. Other opportunities presented themselves that they didn't expect, and they went through that door, right? It just builds and leads upon itself.
What I will tell people is be very smart with the risks you take in the way.
Yeah, it's smart.
Yes, because I am a person, imagine I came to this country with 2 suitcases filled with dreams. I did long distance with my husband for 1 year and 1 month. So, I took a lot of risks, and I did a lot of things that were unconventional for a woman, for somebody from Argentina, for somebody arriving in a new country. So I did a lot of things, but at the same time, there were some things that I knew I didn't want it to take as a risk. For example, I'm very adverse to risk when it comes to my financials. I never put myself in a situation where it's a make or break. And I know there's many entrepreneurs that they do that, and sometimes it works for them, and they grow their businesses exponentially faster. But I know if I did that, I would end up with a heart attack, with some kind of ulcer. So it has to be the right amount of risk that makes sense to you. I know that I don't want to put myself in a make or break financial situation.
Yeah, smart risk is definitely the way to go. But I think even I mean, how much do you think people have to be? I guess it's to be a dreamer becomes natural to me. But if you look at the landscape and someone that's picking up this book, do you find people? I mean, do you find it hard for some people to get out even of the dream state, right? You know what I mean? I mean, you talk about a lot in your book about how, how to even visualize your own dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find people getting stuck there, I guess is my question. I find my kids getting stuck there, right? They don't know what to do next, or some people I want to come across. What do you say to that for people that don't know what to do next?
I think it depends on the person. There's some people who it comes so natural to them, and under incredibly difficult circumstances. Let me share a story with you. When I interviewed Carlos Santana, he received us in his private rehearsal studio in Las Vegas. I've been a fan of Carlos forever and ever. So I really wanted to do this interview, and I did a lot of homework. And I knew that Carlos came from a very humble family, a dysfunctional family, and that he had been sexually abused as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the questions that I wanted to ask Carlos when I met him was, Carlos, at what point, because coming from that background and achieving what he achieved, so it was so unthinkable and so unlikely for it to happen. So the question that I wanted to ask him was, Carlos, at what point did you realize you could become a rock star? And his answer was phenomenal, because in a very Carlos Santana-esque way, very cool way, he told me, I asked him, at what point did you realize you could become a rock star? And he said, Gaby, I was always a rock star.
Mm-hmm.
They just didn't know it. So that's what I mean by people who gave themselves the permission to see their own potential, to see their own life beyond their circumstances, with the eyes of possibilities. And it looks like for some people, like Carlos Santana, they could see dysfunctionalities, surrounding them, or poverty, and still have that inner voice over outer noise, that inner vision so strong. And for some other people, they have, you look at them, and if it was a recipe, they had all the ingredients. They are smart, they have supportive families, they have resources, they have money, and there's something there that doesn't quite click,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't think we should have a deterministic way of approaching things. I think everything is like going to the gym. It's something that you recalibrate every day, that you're intentional every day, and that you can work on every day. But you need to have the time, the discipline, and the willingness to look within and see what is stopping you from taking that journey.
That's Carlos Santana's story reminds me, I even say this, and it's kind of like when I talk about from a leadership perspective, what's the difference between a manager and a leader? And one of the key things for me is that leaders, they don't know how it's going to happen. They just know it's going to happen. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's where that visualization comes in. That's where that faith aspect comes in, I think. And this is what we're talking about here in the dreamer side of it. And you think, and you look at Carlos Santana, and I mean, he's just one of millions of stories of people like, how did they get out of that dysfunctional circumstance? How did he overcome the sexual abuse? How did he come, and he's just like, I don't know how I'm going to get there. I just know I'm going to get there. Oprah talking about, I just knew I was destined to do something, right? There's that something inside of him.
And sometimes I think people love the process also. Carlos loves playing the guitar. Oprah loves communicating. In my own story, for example, I found out that it's very important to know that starting small is not the same as thinking small.
Right.
I started my show out of a carpet warehouse in West Texas.
Right.
And that show eventually grew. I painted with my own hands, the set.
Right.
And that show eventually grew to a nationally syndicated show, and a show that won 3 Daytime EMMYs. beating, and this is an independent show, beating CNNs and the NBC Telemundos and these companies that, you know, are gigantic. And I remember when we got our first nominations for a national Emmy, I called my programming director and I told her, we're very happy and we're very proud, but you know, it's very unlikely that we are going to that we're going to beat CNN or that we're going to beat, you know, other shows. And she said something that stick with me to this day. And she said, Gaby, in television, in life, in projects, in dreams, money is not everything. There are other things that comes from a place of truth. There are other things that comes from a place of how you approach your work that connects somehow with people and can go beyond screens and can go beyond. And I truly believe she didn't call it energy or hocus pocus or anything like that. But I do believe at the end of the day, there's only one language, and that's the language of energy. And that's why people who listen to a song and don't know the lyrics, they get emotional and they cry because they know the intention and the energy behind that song, for example.
I agree with you. And I think it ties into the visualization. I think it ties into the mental images that you need to create. Some people call that manifestation, whatever. But I think that part of the journey is so key. I know it's been important for me. It's just visualizing, well, what is the outcome that I'm trying to achieve? Like, and that changes as I go through the process and the journey, right? As I discover new things. But the art of visualization is so tantamount to me for my leadership journey and my own personal journey, right? It's like, I can see the outcome. Sometimes it's even hard to articulate the outcome and I can see it, if that makes sense, right? Like I can see it, but sometimes I can't even articulate it. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. I think that sometimes we are also scared to say our dreams aloud, because I do believe that our dreams are the most sacred part of ourselves. We are very particular about who we share them with in the beginning. You know, we are very particular sometimes of even imagining it in our minds, you know, whether that is if you want to be pregnant, if you want to start a business, whatever that is. Sometimes we don't even give ourselves permission to have that mental image in our minds. But I think at the same time, there's like two forces. One is this force that sometimes is fear, that, you know, you're fearful even to imagine it, to consider it. Yeah. But at the other end, it's like a burning desire, you know, like a burning desire to do something, to have something manifested in this world. And for example, in my case, I know when I'm breaking barriers, you know, there is like some burning desire that is guiding me. I always say that sometimes I do and I you know, execute things, and I don't see many people like me, many Latinas, many immigrants doing the things that I am doing, but there's some kind of force that is a burning desire that guides me. And I also know the other side, the side of fear, the side that tells me that there's people who are going to assume that you are uneducated only because English happens to be your second language. You know, that watch out, that why are you speaking in public? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? But I choose to say it out loud because I think it's like a spell. When you say it out loud, it has to disappear. So that's why I also speak about accentism, you know, that's why I speak about so many things. And I was so intentional of being the narrator of my own audiobook, because when you go to any platform and you listen to audiobooks on leadership, you don't have people who sound like me. And leaders, we come in all shapes, sizes, forms, accents, you name it. And that's the message I want to send to the universe.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And it's like you're in what you're tapping into. Yeah, I think it would have been a shame. I think you would have shamed the universe if it wasn't your voice on your audiobook, right? But going to even the point of like, what what propelled you to saying, I know this is the right way. You had that visualization, right? I keep going back to that visualization. You knew something was put on your heart. I guess, and I've been a big believer of this, is like if the universe, the God, the angels, muse put something on your heart, whatever it is. And if it's on your heart and it's important to you and you have that self-awareness and you know that is what you want to do, there's a level of resistance that exists. I don't know how it exists or why it exists. It will try to stop you, right? It will try to prevent you from doing it. But if you choose to continue to move, the universe has to move, right? The resistance will try to kill you, or stop you. But if you continue to move, right, and you listen to that, whatever the angels, the muse, God, the universe put on your heart, the universe has to move. I'm a firm believer in that. I get a lot of that out of particularly that chapter on visualization, right? Or the dreamer chapter.
And I say that the dreamer, it's in its purest state when you are a child, because you don't question yourself what your dream is. You don't ask, I'm going to be an astronaut. How? You don't ask yourself how. You just want to be an astronaut.
Right.
You want to do this, you want to do that, and you don't question it yourself. And also, I find a lot of courage in seeing the bigger picture. If you're doing something that is a contribution to the world, if you're putting out there something that is going to help other people, I think that has to give you so much courage, so much encouragement. I always say, and I said it in my TED talk, every time you pioneer, you move the world forward.
Yeah.
Because every time you're doing something and it has not been done and it's a contribution and you're facing that resistance that you're talking about and it's out in the world, you're moving the world forward in your own particular way. And that is something that it's a wonderful feeling. And it's a feeling that I think it's bigger than any insecurity or anything that might pop up, before sharing what you have to share in this world.
Yeah, that's profound what you said. And I think it goes back to the point that I think and these dreams I think it's important for individuals. These dreams don't have to be, like I said, impacting the world like Mother Teresa. But if it's changing your world or you're part of it, right? And you're adding value and you're making the place better than you found it, you're adding value to this transaction. The dream is not an egotistical or selfish dream. It's something that pushes the ball forward or contributes to mankind. I mean, you're right. I mean, I think that's the obligation that we have to pursue. I really do. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, newsworthy, world changing. It's changing your world, right? Whatever your world.
It could be being a pioneer in the world or in your world. If you're the first one who finished high school in your family,
right,
or who went to college, or you're the first one who broke a cycle of violence, or you're the first one who started a bit, whatever that is, you are already pioneering in your world. You're already making an impact. It doesn't matter if your platform is 2 people or 2 million people. It's still a great contribution. And if we think about our own lives, probably the people who made the biggest contribution, they were not the ones that 500 million followers. They were the ones we saw in our everyday life. It could be a teacher, it could be a parent, it could be a friend, somebody who led by example, somebody who saw potential in you, somebody who was your ally when you were feeling down. And that has nothing to do with being famous, with being rich, with being, it's being a person of service. And many times those are the people that surround us that make life-changing clicks for us, and they change the trajectory of our lives.
Yeah, I love it. I love everything you're saying. Well, I even think about it, Rosa Parks, right? Deciding not to stand. All she decided to do was not sit in the colored section of the bus, right? She said, no, I'm sitting here today, right? She chose that. That's that. And that really kind of sparked the civil rights movement, or at least it gave a lot of tinder and fuel to the burgeoning civil rights movement, right? So one person can make one decision. I always like those things. We're always one decision away from radically changing our life, right? And it's true. And I thought about that reading this book, that, you know, we're always one decision away from radically changing our life. In the Virtuous Circle, I love I'm a visual learner. And so that's why I love it, because I love the circle and seeing what you said. It's like, now where am I at? I mean, that's the first time I've ever seen this kind of cycle, like I said. But I love the warrior piece. I was going to bring this up because I with all the interviews that you've done, the conversations and the people you've met, people always ask me, what have you learned from talking to 450 people? And the thing one of the things that stands out, there's a couple things. And one of them that stands out is that it's less about the talent and it's more about the tenacity. That everybody I've talked to that has achieved what I consider something of significance, to the T, they've all said, look, there were people smarter than me, they were richer than me, they had the right looks, they had everything. And the only reason why I succeeded and they didn't is I just went one more day, right? I didn't quit and they did.
Yeah, that's something I touch on the book. There's a part that says it's a myth that talent is rare.
Right.
Talent is abundant. There's abundance of talent. What is rare is the determination to take that talent to fruition, is the determination to have this idea, write the script, finish the script, teach it until it gets done. You know, I was thinking about the other day, this series, which is now the most seen series in Netflix, the one about chess.
Yeah, the Queen's Gambit.
Yes. And I read that it took I think it was 30 years or so to get it done, because who wanted to produce a series about chess?
Right.
Nobody.
How do you pitch that? Yeah. And then when you watch it, it's just like it's enthralling to watch, right? Yeah. That's so true. It's the never giving up piece. I guess the challenge becomes is like when you find yourself in that part where it's like, man, is my work paying off? Am I doing the right thing? What can I do different? Where we're perfecting our craft. The warrior gets up every single day, regardless of, even though the body's telling you no, maybe even the mind's telling you no, but you get up and you continue to persevere and go forward. How do you do that? I mean, how do you, when you find yourself in those low moments and it seems like a grind, and like, how do you keep going forward? What do you do spiritually, physically, mentally to keep going forward?
Well, I believe the warriors should rest also. There's a part of the book that says that praise of sadness to recover joy. And the thing is, the phoenix had to burn first to the ashes to be rebirthed.
Right.
And so many times we push ourselves, especially in this space of personal growth, self-help, leadership, the way you want to name it. There's a very thin line between personal growth, self-help, and self-hate. Because what happens when you set a goal, you persevered, and you didn't achieve it? Some people, they punish themselves for not being able to achieve that goal. And that's something that is never positive. That's something that is never productive. You know, sometimes we have to cut ourselves some slack. You know, you can always try again in the future. You can always think again. You can always redirect. You can always pivot. But the thing is, sometimes you really need to recharge. Sometimes you're going through sadness. Sometimes you're going through processing a lot of emotions. And when you force yourself to stay, quote, positive all the time, you are denying yourself from experiencing the whole range of human emotions we came equipped with. And I feel that we're only human. So you have to recognize sometimes you're going to be able to do it. Sometimes you might need to not stop your dream, but put a little pause, recharge, reset, get back on the ring.
Yeah, I love the part in the book, and it's right before you talked about the myth's talent piece. You got a table in there about the battles are won inside and manifest on the outside. I love that kind of the internal battle of, you have basically, I think, three ideas there. You're like, I deserve to be loved. My ideas and opinions are valuable, and I believe in my potential. You break those three things resonate because it seems like those are when I'm in my lowest or and the limiting beliefs always attack me, and they still do. And that's the other thing I've learned from talking to all these people I've had on my show. People still deal with that today, even though they think they still deal with the limiting beliefs or what happened to them as a child or the weird conversation they had with their father or mother or whatever, right? And this deserve to be loved, that my ideas and opinions are valuable, and I believe in my potential. Think about all those limiting beliefs. I think is like, I don't deserve this, right? Because I'm a selfish pig, or you'll draw yourself back to something that you've done that isn't love worthy in your mind, right? Or that your ideas or your opinions are valuable. I mean, how many times have we said to ourselves, that's a dumb idea. Who's going to think that? Just like you gave the example in your speech when you got chosen for that contest, right? To go speak. And how many times did you say to yourself, God, no one's going to want to listen to this story, right?
Yes.
So I love the table there because because on the other side of it, he says there are things that you can say to yourself, I accept or I do not accept, right? These are things that you can say to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. Because also I had the experience of sometimes, well, now I'm 42, so I'm not the youngest one in the group anymore, but I had the experience in the beginning of maybe being part of groups with older people, and I was just arrived in the United States, so I was new, I was self-aware with the language, and also I was young, and I was there in meetings where, what are your ideas? And I had an idea, but I didn't put up my hand, because I was not confident enough. And somebody with more seniority would say exactly what I had in mind. And yay, wonderful idea. I was leaving all these meetings so mad at myself for not taking the chance of sharing it. And if you share it and it doesn't get picked, so what? Doesn't matter.
Yeah. I particularly, when I look at perseverance and I think of the time, I mean, I asked myself, how did I get to this point? Because I'm at a point now, I'm 52, but I would think that at this point, I'm not afraid of the no's. I'm not afraid of trying things anymore. And I've certainly morphed into that. It was a slow fade into that. It wasn't one day I was this way, and then one night I became this way. But I look at myself in my 20s and my 30s or even my teens, and like I was more risk adverse than I am now. I'm smart risk. I'm not going to do things stupid, but I'm not afraid to try anything. I'm not afraid of rejection anymore. Are you that way too now? I mean, I'm just not afraid of getting turned down anymore, I guess.
I had to be, because when you are starting again from scratch, you have to knock on so many doors, and at the same time you are a small business owner, and at the same time you are trying new things. I always say that you have to know that rejection is part of the process.
Yes.
Rejection is not something terrible that happened to you and the world hates you and who do these people think you are and there's a conspiracy against me. Rejection is part of the process. And if you get along, if you're pitching an idea or if you're looking for a job and you only get a small dose of rejection, lucky you. But that's not usually how, where you go through knocking on multiple doors until you get a yes or a maybe, and then you fight to turn that maybe into a yes. And also, when you are receiving those no's, you have to think about how can I get closer to a yes? Because, for example, in my case, a year and a half ago, a little bit less than a year and a half ago, I became a beauty founder. I launched my own beauty line, my own hair extensions line. And really, whenever we get a return, whenever we have a client that is angry, we always go back to what is it that didn't work? What can we do better next time? How can we get this person to be happy, or to instead of buying one of our products, buy two of our products? So you don't have to put your ego in there, because if you put your ego in there, you said, oh, she didn't understood the concept, oh, she's not appreciative of our product, or this person is not getting it. And at the end of the day, you also have to listen to those no's, not in a sense of giving up on your dream or giving up prematurely on your dream or being discouraged. But if you have the fortune of being able to ask, what can I do to get closer to a yes? How can this no, what is the reasoning behind this no? Sometimes you get a no just because you got a no. There's no budget. This is not a priority. There's so many variables. There's recession, there's so many variables. But at the end of the day, you don't want to be the last blockbuster in the planet. You have to listen to what the market and what the world is telling you. If the world is telling you, we love live streaming, and you get a no and a no, and you're still with your DVD in the hand. I'm not gonna take a no for an answer. I'm not gonna take. And I think there was this last blockbuster. I think it was in Alaska, which was the last one, and it finally closed. And I said, okay, of course they get a 10 in persevering, but at some point you have to listen to what is happening, because I'm all for being a big warrior and for persevering, but you have to be smart also to learn and read the room, read the market, and figure out what is happening.
Yeah, I like the idea that the no's are not, and I personally look at it this way. I mean, nobody likes rejection, and it doesn't mean that it's not painful when it happens, but I remind myself that the rejection is just leading me down the path that I'm going, because I have to believe, I have to have the faith. This is how I look at it. And your book, I think, reinforces this. I have to look at it as like, okay, it's just this rejection is just steering me towards the path that, a better path that is eventually going to come my way. Right.
Mm-hmm. In the book, I have two types of no's. There's the detour no, which is the one that you're talking about. I get a no, and this no is sometimes unexpected, and somehow it makes me think about different options. That is a detour no. Then there's another kind of no that is the uphill no. The uphill no is the one when, for example, you are studying for an exam that is kind of hard and you didn't get to pass the exam. So in order to pass the exam, sometimes you have to put more effort. Right. Or you are an actor and you want your first role and you're going through an audition and another audition. And so when we get a no, we don't know what kind of no it is. So, and that's the mystery. You don't know if this is a no that is meant for you to detour. And when you have a detour no, the message is for you to consider other alternatives. Or if you have an uphill no, and that is the type of no's where it's asking you to strengthen your focus. When you have an uphill no in front of you, what you have to do is be super concentrated and have that laser focus on whatever you want to achieve. When you have a detour no, what you have to do is to consider different alternatives. But you don't know sometimes what kind of no you have in front of you. For example, for me, when I was in Argentina, I received a lot of no's and they ended up being detour no's. Consider living in another place, consider different options, consider applying for scholarships in other countries, consider other things that you're not consider right now. And when it came to my first opportunities in my career, like your first opportunity on camera, back in the day, there was no podcasting, there was nothing like this.
Right.
So there was these gatekeepers who had to kind of see something in you from out of a pile of candidates and give you your first opportunity on camera. And those are the no's where it was an uphill no. If you really wanted that opportunity, you had to persevere until you get the most difficult part, which is to get the first yes. When you have the first yes, then you have a reel, and then you could show other people, yes, I was on camera before. This guy or this woman, they believed in me and they gave me the opportunity, and here I am on camera. So you don't know at the moment.
Those are my two favorite chapters, the Dreamer one and the Warrior chapter. There's so many. I mean, we've barely scratched the surface of what is in this book. You have really presented a value-packed book, and it touches so many aspects of limiting beliefs, of faith, of spirituality, of believing in yourself, personal stories that augment everything you say, but there's practical tools in here on how to get through each stage of the virtuous circle. And like we just touched on 2 of them and barely scratched the surface in this, almost 50-minute conversation that we've had on this. I think you've done a wonderful job, Gaby. I think it's a really great book. And just watching you speak to, again, just a couple of aspects that are chock full in the book, I highly encourage everyone to go get it, because anybody that's listened to me and listened to the show, I believe in this stuff, and I eat this stuff up. I want everybody to achieve it. This really is a roadmap and a visual tool to remind us where we're at. If we got something on our heart, if there's a dream from the angel, the muse, the God, universe, whatever. That's why I love this book, because now I can use it and say, this is where I'm at, right? And then eventually, hopefully, get to that part and start the cycle over again, right? To make the universe better than we found it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And also to discover what are the areas that you are naturally strong at, and which are the areas where, okay, if you know that you get stuck in the maker and in executing, okay, so I now know that planning comes natural to me, visualizing comes natural to me, but I'm not jumping in. So you kind of have that tool of knowing where you get stuck and what comes natural to you.
Yeah, and the leader chapter 2, all the type of leadership that we talk about here, the compassionate side of leadership, of adding value, not stepping on people, uniting instead. And my God, doesn't the world need that, right? The world needs a lot of uniting at this point, right? And those are the type of leaders that we need.
Absolutely. And also leading by example, because I make a differentiation between the champion and the leader. The champion is the one right before the leader. The champion is the one who has achieved whatever it set out to do in the beginning of the virtuous circle, in the beginning of the cycle. But not all champions become leaders. There are champions who only collect their own individual achievements, but they never use those achievements to make this a better world. That's why in my own definition of leadership, those people who are not well-meaning, those people who are not kind-hearted, those people who do not use whatever life gave them or whatever they accomplished to make a difference for good in this world, they don't even qualify in my book as a leader.
Well said. I agree with you 100% agree with you. The book is awesome. Is there anything that we have as we close up here, approaching an hour in a conversation, a great conversation with you? Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to make sure people understand here in the last minutes?
I just want to continue the conversation. I just want people to, make sure they are following in social media. Every day I do a live at 9 a.m. where we recalibrate our energy and set our intentions for the day. It's only 10 minutes or 15 minutes. The most selfish thing that I have done during this pandemic, because people think I'm doing it for them. Really, really, it's the best feeling. I crave connection. I miss talking, hugging. So I found that this morning ritual that we share, it's something that I platform. And also I want to remind people what we mentioned and we touched upon before. Remember to keep seeing the world from the place of possibilities. Remember that you don't have to jump to permanent conclusions based on temporary circumstances. And 2 more things that I always say in my lives. 1, I want people to know that your uniqueness is your gift to this world, because so many times we are ashamed of our uniqueness. And I know I had to do inner work to appreciate all the things that made me me, that did not resemble anybody else, and that makes me unique in this world and also in this personal growth space. Owning my story. Your life story is not an apology. So you have to own it. And the last thing is that when we open ourselves up to the world, we take those risks, we make those calls, we make the interviews, we talk to each other. When we open ourselves up to the world, the world opens itself up back to us. You will not believe the changes and how your world is going to start expanding when you first make the deliberate decision, the deliberate choice to open yourself up to the world.
Well said. What a great way to end the conversation. I love it. The book is The Virtuous Circle, Restore Your Confidence, Bounce Back, and Emerge Stronger. Great book. I highly recommend everybody get it. Great conversation, Gaby. This was just so much fun. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed this conversation very much. Besos to everyone.
All right. See you.